All right, one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride-in on this Tuesday morning. Couple accidents to report. One at Garner's Ferry and Atlas Road. Another one at I-20 westbound before Alpine Road. So be careful as you're making your way through there. And then one at Fairway and Larchmont as well. Today it's going to be sunny with a high of 89. Tomorrow sunny, a high of 91. We have some chance of rain returning on Friday. Currently 72 here in downtown Columbia on the game. Nine o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point.
Wednesday.
It is Wednesday. Oh my God, it is Wednesday. Look at me.
Look at you, man. Losing track of days. That's the trap you fall into with summer.
Listen, I was very sick yesterday. I was here, but I wasn't here, if that makes sense. So I feel like I kind of lost today this week. So sorry, it is Wednesday morning. My bad. Good to see you again, by the way.
Good to see you, man. Yeah, I didn't realize it until you posted the tweet this morning. Like, yeah, it's been 2 weeks since we've both been on air together, right?
That's right.
When's the last time we've been in person together? I was in person for like 2 days last week.
Yeah, it's been a while, and again, a lot of things going on this summer. We're obviously all trying to get our vacation days in when we can before we kind of lock in for the grind of football coming up here in a little over 2 months. I was in D.C. all of last week. You were in Detroit the past, or at least on Monday.
Yeah,
watching the Yankees play the Tigers.
Yeah, past 2.5 days was in Detroit. That was a lot of fun. That was cool. Never been there before, so we were visiting some family friends out there and stayed in the city. It was cool. It was a lot better than what Detroit is made out to be. Yeah. So Detroit's made out to be this this city that's dirty and it's got a lot of problems and whatnot with criminal activity, and it really was not that at all. It was very nice. It was a good time out there, and yeah, good to be back in studio, man.
I felt the same way about D.C. D.C.'s made out to be a rough city, and, we were primarily in the touristy areas, but I thoroughly enjoyed where we were at. Everything was nice and clean and seemed relatively safe. Now, again, as you kind of venture northward, that may be where more of the rougher neighborhoods are and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't feel in danger at all during my time in D.C.
Nah, D.C.'s cool, man. It's a good time out there. So you were out there for the whole week, right?
Yeah, we were out there the whole week, Saturday to Saturday.
Okay, so what was the itinerary? Like going to just check out all the landmarks and whatnot, or?
Yeah, we did a little bit of everything. Went to the monuments, went to all the museums, or as many museums as could. Can't hit all of them in a single week. We went to a Nationals game. They played the Royals, so went down to Nationals Park, which very cool park, very kind of small, a little bit smaller than I thought it was. Mm-hmm. But good venue. Went to the Mount Vernon, stuff like that, Arlington National Cemetery. So did a little bit of everything. I'd been before when I was in middle school. My wife had never been, and I'd always talked about I'd love to go back and for one, have a better appreciation for what I'm seeing, and two, not be kind of rushed through it like I kind of felt like we were when I was, going back in 8th grade. So it was a fun trip. It was my 30th birthday trip that my wife gave to me, so I had a lot of fun.
That's a good wife right there. So that's awesome, man. Glad you had a good time out there.
So you would have been in attendance for the Jazz Chisholm Lollipop game on Monday, correct?
Yes, I was. And
now, could you see it from the stands?
No, I couldn't. And it's funny because Jazz did a lot of things that game. He was building a sandcastle in the middle of the infield because I don't know if you realize this, there's a camera in the infield dirt, and I guess it got above ground.
Okay.
So Jazz, it was like a 6.5 minute delay during the game, and Jazz was just burying it a little bit. So that's where the whole building a sandcastle joke comes from. And then the lollipop thing, I think I'd seen it on Twitter during the game, but I didn't realize it during the moment. And then you got Aaron Boone yesterday talking about how he's, PO about that whole situation. But yeah, I guess he's now got the nickname of the Lollipop Kid after leading the Yankees to a win yesterday. So yeah, Monday's game was not fun with the Yankees losing, but still, it was a cool ballpark. By the way, had never been out there. I just, again, it feels a little tight, but it's also very big. If that makes sense, just because of how deep the outfield is out there. But it's a nice stadium, man. It's definitely a good time out there.
Yeah, glad you had fun with that. That's really cool. Wish they could have won for you.
Yeah,
but,
that would have been nice, but
yeah,
it's okay.
It's long season. Monday night also was the end of the college baseball season. I don't. You're probably getting updates on your phone or whatever, but you didn't really miss a competitive game because Oklahoma completely steamrolled North Carolina in the final there, and the SEC now 7 straight national championships.
Yeah, I was unwise to bet against Oklahoma because they have an MGM casino out there in Detroit. So we spent some time out there and put some money down on UNC and the Yankees to win, and both of them lost. So that parlay did not hit at all. But yeah, I thought UNC was going to win, man. I mean, they looked really good in game 2. They were pitching really well, and then game 3, I don't know what happened. I mean, Oklahoma just dominated, and it's one of the more impressive runs that I think we've seen in college baseball in recent memory of a team that was really, I mean, they were under 500 in SEC play, went one and done in the SEC tournament, and I mean, I think they were trailing by a few runs against Georgia Tech, and then just since then, they've just steamrolled the competition. And they've done it the hard way, too, because they weren't a national seed. They had to go on the road everywhere. They went to Georgia Tech. They won that regional. They went to Lawrence. They won the Kansas regional or super regional. And then they beat all top 8 seeds out there in Omaha. So really impressive what Oklahoma was able to do. And, yeah, it keeps the SEC's run of dominance going.
Well, my thing going into that game on Monday night, we're talking about with Wes and Chris, and like on paper, North Carolina was the better team. On paper, North Carolina was the deeper team, certainly when it came to their pitching staff, but there's just something about a team that has momentum on their side. And that's the thing, especially about college baseball, we've seen in years past with the Ole Misses and stuff like that. You don't have to be the best team. You just have to be playing the best baseball when it matters most. And Oklahoma found their offensive identity and started knocking home runs left and right, led by guys like Dayton LaChance, who they kept showing the graphic, didn't hit a single home run like the first 30 games, and now had like an 18 or 19 by the end of the season. You know what I mean? Like all those things came together at the right time to where nobody could beat them, right? And I think when they lost that first game to North Carolina in game number 2, I think that was only their second loss of the entire postseason.
It's crazy. I mean, it's just wild, that run of dominance they won. And you're right. I think there is something to be said about, and we see this in the pros as well, with just catching fire at the right time. Like the team that's typically the hottest, doesn't matter who you are, you could be the last team to get in. If you're hot, that's tough to beat. And having momentum in baseball is unlike anything else. Like football, typically the best team wins, right? Like that's usually how it goes. Basketball, by especially in college, by the end of the Final Four, it's typically the top seeds are in there. The Cinderellas don't usually go to that point super deep consistently. College baseball's a little unpredictable because you get the field of 64, you get some random teams that make it, and then they go on deep runs, and it shouldn't be a surprise that a team from the SEC won. I think it's more so a surprise that if you had to, I think when we talked about this at the beginning of the College World Series a week and a half ago, if we're looking at which teams are going to win the College World Series from the SEC, I think we would have picked probably every team before Oklahoma, the other 4 that got in. So the fact that they were able to come out is a bit of a surprise for sure, but still it keeps the SEC's run of dominance going.
Well, obviously we hope that this time next year, maybe we're talking about South Carolina playing their way into Omaha, getting back there for the first time in a decade and a half. Again, you and I haven't been together in the past week and a half, but Kevin Schnall has been fully ingrained in everything with Gamecock baseball and building this roster for next year. A lot of activity in the transfer portal. We obviously knew about the guys that he was bringing in from Coastal prior to him even being introduced as the head coach in the days since. He's brought in several other talents, including most recently Andrew Costello from Wake Forest coming in alongside of the from the hitting coach from there that's coming in to lead the offense. Tyler Pitts are also making a return as he comes in from his year at Mississippi State. So roster continue being built, and what is your thoughts on what he's done so far?
I think it's been good. I like the guys that he's brought in from Coastal to get this thing started, and then you've got some guys coming in from other schools. Obviously, they're not done yet. They still need to get a few guys for sure, but I like the makings of this roster so far. And yes, you're losing a lot of guys from this past year's team, but honestly, when you have the type of season that South Carolina did, is it really that big of a deal? Like, losing Jake McCoy stinks, but obviously, I don't think he's going to hit campus with Tennessee on it. If I'm being quite honest, I think he's going to get drafted pretty early in a few weeks, and then he'll go pro probably, I would have to imagine. I mean, especially with what's on the verge of happening with the MLB, with the lockout and all these different potential, rule changes and stuff with the new CBA. I mean, it's definitely murky waters. So I think guys that had the opportunity to get drafted and get picked are probably just going to decide to go pro. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if any of these guys that are on the current team right now, like what happens with Am Phillips, these Coastal guys. We'll see. But I think they have the makings of a better roster right now than these past two seasons, but time will tell.
And still waiting to hear on a couple of other guys. J.D. Stein, shortstop from Wake Forest, was visiting campus yesterday. Again, that will be another addition coming along with the hitting coach there. And then as well, we also learned that last Friday, Will Craddock was back on campus meeting with Kevin Schnall, and you still have an opportunity to get him back out of the transfer portal, which, again, we talked about as a possibility. We understood why guys like him and Scobie and so many others would go ahead and opt to go into the portal because you didn't have a head coach. The portal was open, so you may as well put yourself out there to see what options you have. Obviously, Schnall gets hired, and now you can have those conversations about, okay, is it the best fit for me to come back and play for this guy or seek an option elsewhere?
Yeah, and depending on when these visits happen with Craddock specifically, with Georgia and Mississippi State as the big ones, man, hopefully there's an answer by the end of this week, potentially. I don't know when these exact visits are, but we know they're this week, so we'll see. And it's interesting that South Carolina got the first look at talking to Craddock, so what kind of impact did that have? That whichever one of these other schools gets the last chance to talk to him, they get the last impression on him before he makes a decision. That will be something interesting to keep a note on. But we'll see, man. I mean, those are some good schools you got to go up against to get Craddock back. And if you get him back, that's obviously a really big addition. If you don't, you definitely have to pivot, here soon and kind of figure out what you're going to do to replace a guy like that, because that's, as much as he struggled in SEC play, he still hit double-digit home runs. I think that's a guy that, and has a pretty good glove, honestly, defensively. We learned that for sure this year. That's a tough guy to replace, so hopefully you can get him back. But if not, there probably are other options out there, but you just got to move a little bit quickly on that.
Well, and this is another one of those scenarios where you're going to have to pay for it, right? Like, we know that they're investing even more resources into baseball to make sure Kevin Schnall has tons to spend in the transfer portal, and to get a guy like Will Craddock back, you're going to have to pony up for it, especially competing with the schools that, again, he's going to be visiting with. Before he makes a final decision, you're going to have to make it worth his while. And he's a guy that, again, because of his upside, is probably going to command a pretty decent dollar value. And we'll see if Carolina matches up with that.
Yeah, but overall, I think they've got good structure so far. I like the staff that they've put together, bringing in Bill Costello from Wake Forest. I think you're going to get, J.D. Stein's a guy that is from Wake Forest. So we'll see if he ends up following Costello, or I'm sorry, not Costello. I'm getting Costello and Salento mixed up. Bill Salento,
yes.
Yeah, with Andrew Costello. He's another guy that also followed from Wake Forest. So, yeah, Salento, we'll see how many more guys from Wake follow. J.D. Stein would help fill that shortstop void a little bit, for sure. Potentially could be the starter day one. Who knows? But, yeah, I think they need a few more pieces in the outfield, I think. I think they need a few more guys in the infield. You feel pretty good about the catcher spot, especially if you can get some, everyone hits campus, but we'll see.
What'd you think of Schnall's introduction, the helicopter and all that stuff the other week?
Terry and I think Elijah and I were all talking about that a bit last week. I mean, it was good. It was good. It was a well put together event overall. I thought it was something that South Carolina just has never really done in recent memory, and I think the helicopter entrance for Schnall was a bit much. I think that was, he hasn't won anything here at South Carolina yet. I understand you're trying to make him feel special and all that sort of stuff. I understand that. If you're, he's been to Omaha. He's a proven winner. He's gotten the job done at Coastal Carolina, but he hasn't won anything at South Carolina yet. So I think that was a little over the top. But then again, if that's what South Carolina's going for, I can't really blame them.
Well, I don't think that's something he asked for.
Oh, totally not.
I
Totally
think they
not.
were like, hey, we're going to do this for you because Schnall doesn't seem like the type of guy. I was like, hey, can you give me a helicopter for my entrance here?
Yeah, I think he mentioned in his little press conference afterwards, like if it helps the program get to where they need to be in recruiting and whatnot, then he's all for doing it. But yeah, it's definitely something that I don't think he would want to have done.
And listening to his press conference, I've listened to it before I went on my flight to DC that Saturday. Very short and to the point. I don't think you're going to get 2 to 3 minute answers out of him like you got out of Monty Lee and Paul Maneri. He's going to be pretty straightforward, no nonsense. I feel like when you guys get the chance to talk to him.
No, he'll shoot you straight. I mean, it's definitely going to be a different vibe for sure. But I think that's what South Carolina needs right now is something just completely different to get this program back on track.
A lot of reasons for optimism when it comes to Gamecock baseball. Also reasons for optimism for Gamecock football as we're 73 days away from kickoff. We'll tell you about the number 73 coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri on your Wednesday here on The Game. Tyler Ed here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. There's that big soccer tournament going on right now. America plays again tomorrow, by the way, to wrap up the group stage. And when you have games going on all day long, every single day, you might wonder, well, where can I go and take in all this great soccer action? Well, I got the answer for you, and that's our friends over at Twin Peaks. No matter what game you're not watching, no matter what country you're supporting, you can go on down to Twin Peaks and take in all that great soccer action with delicious scratch-made food from the Twin Peaks kitchen. And, of course, don't forget about those 29-degree draft beers to wash it all down with. Whether it's today, tomorrow, or any time during the big soccer event, get yourself down to Twin Peaks and enjoy everything they have to offer. Twin Peaks, eats, drinks, scenic views. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. We're getting closer to the start of the college football season. 73 days until South Carolina and Kent State square off on Saturday, September 5th. And the number 73 brings us to Connor Shaw's record of total combined touchdowns for a player in South Carolina school history with 73, which he did over the course of his career here in Garnet and Black. And it's interesting because Lenore Sellers might have an opportunity to break said record this year, as Sellers currently sits 8th on the all-time list of South Carolina's football with 46 total touchdowns. So that would mean he would need at least 27 to tie and 28 to beat Connor Shaw's total touchdown record at this school. Do we think he can?
It's possible, for sure. He would need to have a breakout year, but it's definitely possible in this Kendall Briles offense that we continue to hear about, and that it should be better for sure than what we saw last year. And look, if it's significantly better, yeah, he should be able to get to that total. But he's got to improve a lot as a passer. That's for sure. I'm not talking about just. I mean, we know he could throw the ball downfield, no problem with that. It's the decision making that I think needs to improve. And we've talked about that a lot this offseason. Is he's got to be better taking care of the football, knowing when to run, when to throw the ball away. Don't try to play hero ball. Just make the play that you see fit. If it's not there, do something else, right? Don't throw it into harm's way. So, yeah, if everything works out for him, I could definitely see him getting to that total. It is worth noting, though, he's never thrown for more than 20 touchdowns in a season. So we're talking about, like, again, he's going to have that career type of year. And if he's getting close to 30 touchdowns this season, that means he's made significant improvement. And I also wonder what kind of impact that would have on his rushing stats. But at the end of the day, if he's improving as a passer, I think that is the best thing for him, especially as he looks to make the jump to the pros within a year's time.
So his best season, no surprise, was 2 years ago when he had 25 combined touchdowns, 18 passing and 7 rushing. So again, if he replicated that exactly, he'd end up 2 touchdowns short of the record set by Connor Shaw. Last year took a step back, only 13 passing touchdowns and 5 rushing touchdowns. But I do think it's important to note when you look back at the guy that we compare Sellers to a lot when it comes to the Kendall Briles offense, KJ Jefferson, when he played for Kendall Briles back at Arkansas in 21 and 22, he, in 2021, had exactly 27 total touchdowns, 21 rushing and 21 passing and 6 rushing. And then in 2022, he had 33 total touchdowns, 24 passing and 9 rushing. So again, it's not an exact one-to-one comparison, but it is worth noting that the guy that we again say is the most similar in terms of quarterback types that Kendall Briles has ever worked with, that will be a comparison for Lenore Sellers, did have wildly successful seasons that would be enough to get him over that mark.
Yeah, and look, it just depends on. I think a lot of it really truly will come down to how he does in these first few games, because I think he can really stack up his numbers to start the year with these first 2 games against Kent State and then Towson. Like, realistically, I mean, let's put an over/under out there. We're talking 7.5 passing touchdowns through those first 2 games. What do we think? I mean, I would imagine, you would hope that if he's playing for, he's probably not going to play the entire game. If he's playing for 3/4 of each game and South Carolina is blowing these teams out, yeah, you would hope he's going to be able to probably clear that mark and probably push towards 10 touchdowns before, Mississippi State.
Yeah, look, I hope he doesn't even have to play in the second half of either one of those games. I hope they're up by so much at halftime, you can go ahead and sit him and rest him. I don't know. I think that's an interesting number. I also think the fact, and again, we're talking total touchdowns here, not just passing touchdowns. I do wonder how much you're going to run him in those first 2 games as well, just because you don't want him to take unnecessary hits before you get into SEC play. So it may lean more towards him throwing in those games than rushing. But I don't think it's impossible to be in that 7 to 8 touchdown range by the end of those. Now, again, that would mean you're pretty much scoring on just about every single drive in a lot of those games, and those being passing touchdowns. But I don't think it's impossible.
No, it's definitely not impossible. Yeah, when you factor in rushing into that, yeah, totally. It is certainly possible. But again, he's got to really, because we just don't know what SEC play is going to be like for him, right? That's the thing, is there were some games where he was great. Like, I think he was very good against Missouri last year. There were times where you take out those interceptions against Clemson. I thought he was pretty solid in that game, throwing the ball deep. But, yeah, he's just got to, make his mark early on in the season. If he's not having success in those first two games, like if it's maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns total through 2 games, then, yeah, I don't think he's going to get to that mark. I think that's a lot to ask for with 10 games to go. So, yeah, the reason I say it is just because you have an opportunity to do really well and blow out these opponents. That should also mean that Lenoris is having pretty good stat lines in those games.
So if you are just betting on it right now, do we think he beats the record?
I mean, now that you say you factor in rushing touchdowns into that.
Yeah, because this is total touchdowns.
Yeah, total touchdown.
Not just passing.
For a second, I thought it was passing just because of how long Shaw was here at South Carolina playing. I'm going to lean towards yes, I think he does. So we're talking about 27 touchdowns to break it. Is that right, or tie?
Yeah, 27 would tie, and 28 would break.
So I think, like, realistically, can he get to 22 touchdowns passing and 6 rushing? I think that's definitely possible because we're talking about, from his 2018 numbers, I mean, he had 18 passing touchdowns and 7 rushing. We're talking about 4 more passing, and then he's already got the 7 rushing. So, yeah, I think that's definitely possible for sure.
Yeah, no, I have no doubts, right? And again, we saw the best version of Sellers 2 seasons ago, and even in that year was 25 total touchdowns. I expect, and again, there's got to be a lot of kind of unrighting the wrongs that were going on with Mike Shula a season ago, but I have full confidence that Kendall Briles is going to untap an even better version of Lenore Sellers than what we saw 2 years ago, and I have no doubt he can be in that 30-ish touchdown range by the time the season ends. So then he would be the new school record holder for total touchdowns, clearing 73.
Yeah, it's definitely possible for sure. But, yeah, I'll be interested to see what he does in those early games, depending on how long he plays, too. Because, yeah, if he's only playing a half of football and South Carolina's up by plenty, his numbers aren't going to be as great as they could be if he were playing a full game. But if they are up by a lot, that could potentially mean he's doing a lot of good things early on in those games.
We'll see. Again, number 73 is what Sellers is chasing this year to be the all-time touchdown leader for South Carolina, as we were 73 days away from kickoff between South Carolina and Kent State. We got some pretty groundbreaking news from the NCAA yesterday in the future of eligibility. What does that mean? We'll talk about it coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri on your Wednesday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. Extra Point. It's Howard Head, Jack Feltry on your Wednesday here on the game. Yesterday, the NCAA Division I cabinet officially approved their new age-based eligibility model. This has been in the works for a while and is just seeking the final few I's dotted and T's crossed to make this officially official, which would mean that starting this upcoming year, instead of having red shirts and things of that nature, you would have 5 years to play 5 seasons in college, where your clock on eligibility would start once you graduate high school or once you turn 19, whichever of those ends up coming first. And Jack, again, this is something that's kind of been in the works for a while, but a radically different approach to eligibility from the NCAA going forward.
There's only like a few exceptions to getting extensions or waivers, and that's for pregnancy, religious missions, which would apply to like a school like BYU, where I think it's like a 2-year service mission you go on typically. Yeah, or military service. So, I mean, yeah, once that clock starts, I mean, it's ticking. So, I mean, I don't really think there's going to be many red shirts anymore at this point.
Well, red shirts won't exist.
Yeah, I mean,
straight up.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point of red shirting, right? When your eligibility clock is ticking. So, it's very interesting. I like this. I think it is. It's just we've gotten to the point where, and I think COVID screwed a lot of this up, to where you have guys that are playing. I mean, do we even have guys anymore that still have COVID eligibility left? Like,
I keep thinking we're filtered through all of them, but then there's still more apparently.
We've gotten to the point where things have just gotten out of control. With, you got like 26-year-olds still in college, playing, football, baseball, whatever the sport is. And I think this typically goes for like football mostly. Like, you've got guys that should not be anywhere near like imagine me or you being still in college, playing right now. I mean, like, I'm gonna be 26 in like 10 days, and I mean, you just turned 30. I mean, like, we're talking about guys that are probably still that age that were just playing college football or any of these sports a year or two ago. So to get this whole thing back on track, I like this. 5 seasons in 5 years just gives everyone a fresh start. Of course, guys that are kind of getting grandfathered into this will have the option to go with the new rules or the old rules. So we'll see where a lot of this goes. But this doesn't really seem to impact guys until you get to like 27 is when it'll be officially kicked in for everybody.
Yeah, and what this is kind of essentially clamping down on is, all right, somebody decided to go play minor league baseball straight out of high school. They played it for 3 or 4 years, didn't make it to the pros. Well, now they want to come back and play in college, play college football or something along those lines. Like, that kind of prevents those kind of things from happening. Like a Brandon Whedon situation. Remember, was he like a 24-year-old freshman, 26-year-old freshman or something like that at Oklahoma State? Like, that kind of thing can't happen anymore, because that wouldn't fall within the exemptions that you mentioned there of, religious cases like BYU and Mormon missions, pregnancy when you talk about female athletes, or what was the third one?
Military service.
Military service, that's right. So they're preventing these things from happening. I'm assuming this also applies to international pros as well. Some of these older guys that come in at the age of, 23, 24 and stuff like that, that kind of would be potentially limiting a lot of them if their clock would have ran out, because again, it starts at 19, no matter if you're in America or not, I believe. So that is something that could also be affected by this going forward.
And that said, with this coming in, there's going to be a handful of lawsuits coming in for guys that maybe were out of eligibility at one point, but now there's the option for that 5th year. I mean, like, and it's already begun. I mean, there's attorneys that are already, having plans to sue the NCAA, and with everything that's gone wrong for the NCAA with all these lawsuits, it wouldn't be surprising if we're seeing a lot of guys get that extra year of eligibility. It's just, it's crazy what's going on in college athletics, but I feel like this is a way to kind of get a little bit of a grip on everything that's going on. Makes the rules a lot more strict and straightforward rather than a lot of loose ends and all these different things and flexibility. It's just straight to the point now of, hey, you've got 5 seasons to play, all your years of college eligibility.
Yeah, and those lawsuits that you're mentioning there, it's for student athletes who just ran out of eligibility. So the 25-26 season was their final year eligible under NCAA rules. And those are the ones that are going to be trying to advocate saying, hey, we should be grandfathered into this and being given an extra year of eligibility. I see the case they're trying to make, but I also look at it as, because again, we kind of look at the new sports calendar year starting on July 1st, right? Which again is coming up next week. If you've run out of eligibility before like this rule essentially goes into effect, I don't know if that should apply to you or not. You know what I mean? Like you ran out of eligibility prior to the rule changing, so I don't think you should retroactively be granted something after the fact.
I don't think so either. I understand it for, well, I mean, the guys that are already in, still have eligibility left. Doesn't really matter for them because their clock will eventually run out eventually here. But with the guys that, they just completed college and are done, I don't think, and it would just create a head case if you start approving some of these guys that are going to have lawsuits. Then it just creates a whole can of worms. And I think the NCAA is trying to get away from that with this new rule, eventually coming into effect here. So I think just it's an opportunity for a clean slate. We'll see if what happens with these lawsuits, but I mean, look, it should be pretty simple. If we're talking about guys from the past, like this past year, they should not be approved to play another year.
Yeah, I do think where litigation will probably come into effect with this is when you have somebody that's dealing with multiple serious injuries over the course of their college career. Remember the Cam McCormick guy that played at Oregon and Miami, the tight end that played for like 9 years? Well, he kept having like severe knee injuries over and over and over again, and the NCAA was granting him basically a medical hardship multiple times to allow him to keep playing college football, which is why his career stretched as long as it did. I think, and again, those cases are rarer, but I do think there'll be a situation where one of those type of athletes is like, hey, yeah, I had 5 years to play 5, but I was severely injured for 3 or 4 of those years, and I didn't get to have my full college experience and have the career that I really wanted to have. So I think that'll probably end up in court at some point. Again, does that win the case? I don't know, but I could see that kind of lawsuit coming on the horizon.
I think so, too. There's definitely going to be cases like that where guys just get hurt and their career in that 5-year window is tampered with by injuries and hampered for sure. I just wonder, though, again, this is supposed to be a strict policy put in place with this system. How strict will it end up actually being, I think, is the question. Because you're right. Like, it is an interesting thing to think about. Yeah, like if a guy gets hurt and he's basically, under the old rules, like if you missed less than, let's say it's football, for instance, like you missed, you only played in like 3 games in those 3 seasons. Well, typically, you'd be able to, medically redshirt, come back for another year. But under these new rules, it's kind of like, hey, you have 5 seasons to play. So that's an interesting thing to think about when that road does come eventually.
I do think it's interesting too because redshirting is something that years ago, particularly for football, you couldn't play at all. And then they expanded it out, allowing you to play in up to 4 games, and then postseason games didn't count against it. So the redshirt year in football was getting expanded more and more and more anyway. So this makes total sense from that standpoint of like, yeah, just let him play, man. If you want to play a freshman, go ahead. You know what I mean? And it's not going to hurt his ability to play years after the fact. And I am interested to see how coaches, and again, we won't hear from Beamer for a little while, but how he views this from like a roster management standpoint, now knowing you have the full complement of everybody on your roster eligible to play at all times, not having to worry about burning or preserving eligibility.
I do wonder, though, what makes it what becomes more important, recruiting out of the transfer portal or nailing it on the guys that are coming in straight out of high school? That's really what I wonder here. Like, who benefits more, I guess? And it would probably be the guys that have the opportunity from a clean slate from their first year of college coming in as freshmen to play 5 years. I feel like it probably benefits those guys that are coming straight out of high school more.
I would think so too. Also, I feel like now, because every time we talk about guys coming in from the transfer portal, there's always the joke of, well, how many years of eligibility does he actually have? Does he have a COVID year? Does he not? Like, I think it'll be more straightforward now. Like, all right, this guy's been in college for 3 years, so he comes to South Carolina. He'll have exactly 2 years left. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah, so we'll see, but it's definitely a big deal that this ended up happening.
New era for sure. 5-and-5 eligibility model approved by the NCAA Division I cabinet. We'll come back, wrap up hour number 1 of Would You Rather Wednesday coming up on the other side. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on the game. All right, welcome back in. Extra points. Howard Head, Jack Felcher wrapping up the hour here on your Wednesday on the game. It's time for a Would You Rather Wednesday question. And coming off the heels of Oklahoma winning the national championship for baseball, that is 7 straight for the SEC, the lone out of the Big Four championships that we spend the most time talking about. The lone one for the SEC in the 2025-2026 college sports season. So, Jack, my question to you is, this is just kind of from a fan standpoint, would you rather see the SEC continue to dominate in baseball or get back to dominating in football?
That's a good question. I mean, here's the way we look at it. So the SEC already dominates in baseball and has dominated in baseball for such a long time that, and I think that's what we've grown to know is that it's the SEC in baseball, and then there's pretty much everyone else. Like, there's the ACC to some extent, but I mean, honestly, like, it's not really that close. Like, it is truly the SEC and everyone else. In football, especially as the playoff has expanded more, I think it becomes tougher and tougher for specific conferences to win year after year. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see what we saw from, like, the early 2000s till, like, mid to late 2010s, where the SEC is just in the national championship or winning the national championship every single year. But I guess that's not really what the question is. It's more so about, like, which one would you rather have? I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, for me, I don't know. I mean, obviously football brings in more money. It's the bigger, more popular sport overall. I think it would be more impressive for football to have the SEC. It'd be more impressive if the SEC were dominating every single year and winning the national championship in football. But there is something to be said about the stranglehold that the SEC has on the sport of baseball, where it's just like, every single year there's going to be a double-digit or, multiple teams getting to Omaha, having a chance to win the College World Series. Football, yeah, you'll get a few teams. You'll get a team or two, maybe a few teams in every single year, but it's no guarantee that the SEC is winning the national championship. So long answer to a pretty easy question. I think I'd rather take football, but there is something to be said about how dominant the SEC is in baseball, and that would be tough to lose.
I think you can beat your chest harder for the football thing because it's a lot harder to do now. You mentioned the run the SEC went on from the mid-2000s all the way up into a couple of years ago, where they won almost all the national championships. They were stockpiling most of the best talent, and some of that was done through nefarious practices like money under the table and stuff like that. It was a game everybody was playing, and the SEC was playing it better than everybody else. But now that talent with NIL and the portal and all that kind of stuff has been spread out more, we're seeing more parity in the college football landscape. And yes, the Big Ten has won the past 3 national championships, but I don't know if anybody's ever going to go on the kind of run that the SEC went on for the better part of 2 decades that just ended a couple years ago. So if they were able to replicate something like that, that would be even more impressive this time around, because I think it's harder to do in this day and age.
It would be insane. It'd be crazy. Like, yeah, I think you would take if you could guarantee the SEC wins the national championship in football, let's say, 8 of the next 10 years, I think you take that all day over any sport. Forget baseball, like college basketball, whatever. I think it's so tough to do it in football, especially if the field continues to grow with more teams, because you never know what can happen, man. I mean, typically the best teams end up winning the national championship, but that's no guarantee. And we've seen that with the SEC, and the Big Ten's been able to win the national championship the last few years. I mean, it's tough. It is tough to win in football. So yeah, if you could guarantee the SEC has this run of dominance, kind of similar to what they did in the BCS era or early college football playoff era, where it was 4 teams. Yeah, you take that all day, just because it's a lot tougher than what you see in other sports.
Now, if I asked you the question, what do you think is going to happen? The SEC continuing to dominate in baseball or getting back to dominating in football? I think that's probably a pretty easy answer.
No, it's a complete opposite of what we were just talking about here. I mean, the baseball run continues just because, like I said before, there's not really. I mean, the ACC is probably, like I said, the next closest competitor in terms of, because they've got some good teams in the ACC with like Florida State and Virginia and Duke and all these other programs in that conference. But I mean, it's not like it's 1A, 1B. It's A and then probably like B or C in terms of like where we're talking about. The margin is it's a big gap, I think, between the SEC and everyone else in college baseball. So yeah, I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. Yes, NIL has changed things to where more teams are able to be competitive now if you're willing to put your money where your mouth is. And the landscape has changed over the last decade or so. But one thing that's remained true is that the SEC has just continued to be the powerhouse of the sport.
You think Greg Sankey slept a little bit better on Monday night knowing that he wasn't going to get shut out of the Big Four titles this year?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And again, we talked about it earlier in the show, in the first part of the hour. I mean, it's truly impressive that Oklahoma was the team to come out of the SEC and win the national championship. I certainly did not think that was going to be the case when the field of 64 began.
That'll do it for hour number one. Coming up in hour number two, we'll get into our opponent previews. Take a look at week number 4 as South Carolina goes on the road to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama. What do we know about the Crimson Tide for 2026? We'll discuss that coming up next here on The Game.
All right, everyone, as we close out the first hour here, let me tell you guys about our good friends over at AAA Heating and Air, where home comfort is their top priority. Give a call today at 803-677-1500 to schedule a seasonal maintenance appointment. Let AAA Heating and Air's qualified technicians put your mind at ease with a thorough inspection and cleaning of your heating and cooling system. Join their popular AAA Comfort Club to take advantage of special extras such as flexible visits, added discounts, and priority scheduling. AAA Heating and Air also offers indoor air quality products that work with your HVAC system to improve your home's air quality. Cleaning the air eliminates common household odors, removes allergens and pollutants, and can even improve sleep and reduce the spread of some viruses. So go to callAAAtoday.com. Again, that is call3astoday.com for more info. Tell them Jack from 107.5 The Game sent you on over.
Welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Felcher with you on your Wednesday here on the game. Hour number 2, we'll take a look later on in the hour what happened last night in the NBA draft, as well as the huge trade that the Miami Heat made for Giannis Antetokounmpo, as well as the latest with Brendan Sorsby and his attempt to try and get into the NFL. But first, we're going to start off with our opponent preview, as I've been doing already this week, Jack. On Monday, I combined Kent State and Towson just because, again, I wasn't going to sit here and go too deep into those teams because on paper, Carolina shouldn't have any problems, right? And if they do, we have a whole nother conversation to have. They should be able to handle their business in those games to where it's irrelevant to what those teams are, coming in, basically.
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina realistically, they should be 3-0 heading into this game against Alabama. I can understand 2-1 potentially if you lose to Mississippi State. Who knows what they're going to be like this year. But if South Carolina is what they're supposed to be this year, better than last year, obviously, and how much better, we'll find out. There's a good chance they should be undefeated heading into this game that we're going to talk about.
So this is a road game. It will be the first road game of the year for South Carolina after opening up Kent State, Towson, and Mississippi State at home over at Williams-Brice Stadium. Now that we're entering year number 3 with Kalen DeBoer, is a road trip to Alabama, is it not scary anymore? Because, again, when Saban was coaching there, oh, man, we got to go to Tuscaloosa. That's a guaranteed L. I feel like I'm kind of not afraid of that anymore. You know what I mean?
Times have definitely changed for sure. I'm looking up to see what time this...
It's a night window, 6 to 8.
So it'll be a night game out there. That could... I still think there is something to be said about going to Tuscaloosa, especially at night. Like, it's going to be a raucous environment. Like, it will be tough to play in for sure. It'll be up there with the tougher games you have on the schedule because of that. It's not Saban's Alabama anymore, but it's still a pretty good Alabama team that you would be playing. And yes, they're going to have a lot of change this year from last season, but it's still going to Tuscaloosa. It's still going to Bryant-Denny at night. I think that is going to be a tough environment to play in compared to, say, it was like 2 years ago where you're playing it at 11 a.m. Central Time out there.
Yeah. Some things to know about the offseason for Alabama. They did lose a couple of key contributors to the transfer portal. Isaiah Horton, one of the better wide receivers, lost him to Texas. Edge Q Rasal also lost him to Ohio State as well. And I'd forgotten about this, but they were pretty much set to land Hollywood Smothers, the running back from NC State, as well as Cam Coleman, the wide receiver from their rival in Alabama, before losing both of those guys to the University of Texas, along with Isaiah Horton, who, again, was on the team a season ago. There's been this conversation lately about Alabama not being able to stack up quite as much in NIL compared to other schools, and I think that's a pretty shining example when you're losing guys that, again, you seem to be all but confirmed to have in Smothers and Cam Coleman, and Texas is able to come in and sweep them right out from basically underneath you. And look, for the longest time, you had the Saban discount, right? Guys would come to Alabama to play because, hey, Nick Saban is going to develop me, and I'm going to have a really good shot to get to the NFL in addition to playing for and likely winning some national championships. That's gone out the window, and it's a slow trickle of a process, but I think that's ultimately kind of Alabama's downfall at this point in time. Is I don't know if they're going to be able to be competitive enough to truly make themselves national championship contenders unless something changes, right? Like, they're still going to be good. Like, the standard of what Alabama used to be, certainly that's not going to be met anymore. I don't doubt their ability to win 9 to 10 games and maybe make the college football playoff more often than not, but like I feel like, as we've seen, you have to be at a certain level when it comes to your spending to truly compete for national championships, and I don't know if Bama's at that right now.
No, I mean, I think we can guarantee that they're going to be. I think they're over under set 8.5. I want to say on wins this year. I think I remember seeing that recently. I think they're going to get over. I don't think that's really much of a question. Like, it'll probably be at least barely 9 wins. I think this is an 8 to 9 win team, but yes, there's definitely a chance they could get back to the playoff and do really well. But like, what are the odds of them actually winning 10 to 11 games this season, right? I mean, they seem more vulnerable for a lot of reasons. You mentioned it. Like, they missed out on some key transfers in the portal at wide receiver with Smothers and Cam Coleman. Their quarterback situation is very interesting to keep up with because Ty Simpson's no longer starting under center there. He's with the Rams. You've got a quarterback situation between Keelan Russell and Austin Mack. And regardless of who starts from those two guys, neither of them are necessarily proven as starters. So what kind of adjustment period is that going to look like for them? As, I mean, it's early enough in the season to where they're still not seasoned, right? They're still going to be going through some growing pains. They're only 3 weeks into, 3 games into the year. What do they look like by that fourth game? Are they still kind of figuring things out in that quarterback room? Heck, are they playing both guys at that point? Like, do they have a clear-cut starter? There's a lot of questions with that quarterback situation that, depending on how that goes, I mean, South Carolina is going to have the better quarterback heading into that game, at least based on the experience and whatnot. But, yeah, I'll be very interested to see how that quarterback situation plays out, because it is something that could make or break this game potentially.
As you mentioned, right now the battle is between Keelan Russell, a former 5-star who's entering his second year in college football, and then Austin Mack, who has been with Kalen DeBoer going all the way back to his time at the University of Washington, but has just not seen significant playing time so far. Based on what I've read, there's no leader in the clubhouse as of yet. This seems like it's a battle that's going to go all the way up into the start of the season. Again, it's like, okay, do you go with the younger guy that has the higher upside potential? Do you go with the more experienced guy that maybe just still hasn't played a whole lot? I don't know which way this goes, and I don't know how you determine your better option if you're still in lockstep at this point in time.
Yeah, and that's how camp will eventually play out here when that gets going here in August. That will help determine who the starter is, because eventually Kalen's going to have to name a starter heading into week 1. Ultimately, though, I mean, when you look at the games that they're going to have early on in the season, I mean, it's East Carolina, at Kentucky, Florida State. I mean, East Carolina is going to be a game that it's a group of 5 team, but you should be able to win that game, no problem, play both guys. But then the next 2 games, I mean, you don't really have that margin to kind of play both guys right in those games. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to kind of have your guy figured out by then, and it's not this necessarily switching back and forth. Like, you want to have some, consistency with who your guy is going to be at quarterback and kind of ride with them.
Right.
So, yeah, that's part of what makes the schedule different this year, is just the fact that it's a 9-game SEC schedule. You have less cupcakes on your schedule. I mean, Alabama also stacked up its last cupcake game for the week before Auburn. So, yeah, there's not really a lot of time to figure things out with that quarterback room. You kind of just have to have a guy and go from there.
Alabama, much like South Carolina, trying to improve as well in their offensive line play. They retooled that a lot in the transfer portal this offseason. Last year, they surrendered more pressures than anybody in the SEC and ranked 126th in yards per carry a season ago. So not good up front. Didn't have a really established run game. 2 things they're trying to improve on this upcoming season. And again, when you talk about 2 quarterbacks in Keelan Russell as well as Austin Mack, as we know here with Lenore Sellers, you can have the most talent in the world. If you're not being protected well enough up front, you can only be so successful. So if that offensive line doesn't improve, then they could be in trouble. No,
totally. Especially with what we've seen out of Clayton White's defense. It's usually very consistent. They're pretty good up front. And, yeah, if they're getting a lot of push and creating pressure on a young quarterback, whoever it is, that can be tough. And, yeah, if Alabama's having to rely a lot on its ground game and South Carolina is having a good day stopping them in that department, you feel pretty good about what the defense is doing in that game to give the offense a chance.
As I mentioned at the start of this segment, I feel like going on the road to Alabama isn't as daunting of a task as it once was. It doesn't feel like something that makes you, shake and scared when you see it on your schedule, especially when you consider how well South Carolina has played against them the past 2 years, narrowly losing on the road in Tuscaloosa 2 seasons ago, having them on the ropes last year and letting it slip through their fingers. Like, it kind of seems like a third time's the charm situation. Like, okay, this should be the time where South Carolina finally breaks through and gets the job done against Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, you would think they've had a few heartbreakers these last few years. It is going to be different, though, because it is on the road at night. Like, that's definitely a challenge that you have not really seen. The 2 years ago, it was in Tuscaloosa, 11 a.m., Maybe you caught Alabama snoozing a little bit in that game.
Because that was right off of their Vanderbilt loss.
Exactly. So there was a little bit of that going on, which is a good point to bring up. Last year, South Carolina, I can't remember who Alabama played right before that, but South Carolina played really well in that game and had the lead going into the fourth quarter, was just not able to finish. And again, that was a South Carolina team that struggled mightily offensively. So how much different can things look with this game being on the road, your offense potentially being a lot better? As long as your defense continues to give you a chance, I feel like things can go pretty well for South Carolina in this game. But the thing that holds me up on it is it's still Alabama to some degree. It's not the full Nick Saban in your face type of Alabama team that you're scared to go play those guys. You know what you're going to get. Alabama's not that same type of team anymore, in my opinion. But it's still the name brand, right? It's still Bryant Denny at night. That does not make it an easy game by any means.
Yeah, and to answer your question, last year they caught Alabama off of the Tennessee game, but that was after a stretch run of 4 straight games, all against SEC teams in Georgia, Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Tennessee, and all those teams were ranked. Remember last year, I think Alabama became the first team in SEC history to beat 4 straight ranked opponents during a season, and Carolina caught them at the end of that prior to their bye week before they played LSU. And that was kind of the conversation going into that game. It's like, Bama, maybe they just aren't 100%. They look a little bit fatigued. And Carolina maybe caught them at the right time for that. Again, weren't able to close the deal, obviously. And then you had them coming off the emotion of losing to Vanderbilt the 2 years prior. So you're talking about them for this upcoming year where, they'll play East Carolina game number 1. But then Kentucky, who we'll get into, I guess, tomorrow in our opponent preview, that we have no idea what they're going to be. And then a Florida State team also have no idea what they're going to be. Regardless, those are 2 Power 4 opponents where Carolina will have just played 1 in Mississippi State the week prior. So you could be dealing with an Alabama team that is maybe a little more physically tested than you are at that point in time during the season.
Especially if Bama's 3-0 going into that game, I feel like they're going to be feeling pretty good about where things are at. And if whoever is at quarterback, if it's Russell, Mack, whoever, if they're having success early on, that's going to create a lot of confidence. And, I think for South Carolina, you want to be a disruptor in this game. You want to make sure that quarterback is having the toughest day of their life. Kind of like what we saw, I think it was 2 seasons ago when you're facing Kentucky and Brock Vandagriff had that really awful game. Kentucky just played terrible in that game. You're on the road. Like that's how I view this type of game of like, all right, breaking in a new quarterback. It's still early in the year. Can you make sure that guy is not having the day of his life out there? And if he's having a tough day out there and your offense is doing what they're supposed to be doing on paper, it could be a very good game for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, that game coming up on September 26th as we close in on the start of the college football season. One person that's not going to be playing this upcoming season is Brendan Swordsby, and doesn't look like he's going to be playing in the NFL either. We'll tell you the latest on that coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri on your Wednesday on the Game.
Sponsor of the Garnet Trust Hour on Tuesdays and Thursdays here on the Game. Krantz Cooling and Heating has been providing great HVAC services to Midlands residents and businesses since 1983, and now that same great service that you're accustomed to for your heating and your air conditioning now applies to the plumbing line. You can hit them up at 803-672-3224. You can also go to their website at krantzcooling.com. That's Krantz, cooling with a K.com. You can text them directly from their website. Let them know about what HVAC issues you're seeing at your home or business, what plumbing problems you're having. They'll schedule an appointment, come out, take care of it. Shout out to Justin Krantz, the general manager there. They do an incredible job. They've been out to my home in Wes's. Let them come out to yours. krantzcooling.com.
Welcome back in. Extra Point, Tyler Head, Jack Veltri on your Wednesday here on The Game. Boy, this Brendan Sorsby situation has been so, I don't know what the right word, entertaining, interesting. Well, what's the right word to describe this, Jack?
I'd say wild. It's just got it's very just crazy what's been going on with it. It feels like it should be over, and then it's not, and then there's a new wrinkle that comes out about it. I mean, it just does not stop, and we definitely are not seeing the last of it anytime soon. And shoot, honestly, the way things are playing out right now is what we're going to talk about. I mean, this could be something we talk about this time next year.
So the latest update, of course, yesterday is after last week, Brendan Sorsby just gave up his pursuit of playing college football this year, as there were still some pending things in terms of his lawsuit with the NCAA, despite the fact that he was granted the preliminary injunction from the judge a couple weeks ago that created the whole PR mess that Texas Tech found themselves in for a couple days. They're still going to be feeling the repercussions from. Brendan Sorsby last week decided he was going to opt to try and enter the NFL supplemental draft. Now, here's the thing. The supplemental draft is not a guarantee. The NFL has to approve it to happen. So basically, Brendan Sorsby had to make his case to the NFL of why they should hold a supplemental draft this year to allow him to begin his NFL career. Well, he submitted his paperwork and all that kind of stuff only a couple days before the deadline, and yesterday the NFL denied him. And I said this the other day in talking about this situation. I said, I don't know if it's a guarantee that the NFL is going to approve this or not. You know, there are articles and talking heads out there already talking about which teams were going to take him or which teams would be interested in him. And I'm like, I don't know for sure if the NFL is even going to go for this. And yesterday they obviously didn't.
It just shows that they have no tolerance for the NFL I'm talking about here. They don't have tolerance for the gambling problem that he obviously, he's obviously gone through treatment and rehab and all that stuff, but still, that stuff does not magically go away in a few weeks here. So, yeah, it shows that they have no tolerance for that sort of thing. And so now, if I'm not mistaken on this, he would have to wait until the 2027 NFL draft to potentially be picked up by an NFL team, correct?
Yes, at the earliest. He would have to just enter the draft process like everybody else, but he would not be able to play football this upcoming season. And go back to your point a second ago about the NFL not wanting anything to do with the situation that Sorsby created for himself with his gambling addiction. That's something that Adam Schefter talked about yesterday on the Pat McAfee show.
The NFL essentially sent him a letter, and the NFL is declining to hold a supplemental draft. And honestly, something was amiss with this all along, because every time you spoke to people around the league about when the supplemental draft would be and whether or not there would be a supplemental draft, I always got pauses, and there were never clear-cut answers. And like, the commissioner's got to decide to have it. I'm like, what is the issue? Well, the issue is that the league, despite any gambling partnerships, the league really does not want any part of gambling, no matter how serious it is or isn't. And anybody that has any role with that, anybody who has any accusations involved with gambling, even though the NCAA said that there were no integrity of the game violations, the league doesn't care. It's the league's supplemental draft, and the league does not want to create a supplemental draft this year for a player who has been accused of gambling. They don't have enough time to vet it. They don't care that they don't have enough time to vet it. It's easier for them to just say, we're not doing this.
It's kind of one of those situations. It's like the NFL supplemental draft is a privilege, not a right. And Brendan Sorsby, in the situation that he's in, you are trying to advocate for yourself on why you deserve to have the supplemental draft happen so you can be selected in the NFL. One, you submitted your paperwork really late, which wasn't going to allow the NFL the time to really vet this out. And when you bring as much baggage as you do when it comes to this gambling, addiction that you've had, the NFL wasn't going to go for that. Again, they're not going to put themselves in that hot water of dealing with this type of situation and bringing this guy into the league without having proper time to go through this. And a league source told ESPN as much. They said his application carries with it a lot of issues, core of it being the game integrity issues, which again go back to the thing that Texas Tech couldn't seem to get through their thick skull when it came to talking about Brendan Sorsby and why people didn't want to play in college football. You willingly bet on the game, bet on your own team, which in and of itself was cause for suspensions and careers to end in other sports because the NCAA can't enforce its own rules, would have allowed him to potentially play college football this year. But the NFL says, yeah, no, we're not doing that. We're the NFL and we can do what we want.
I do understand the other side of this, though, where he should, have a chance to go through a supplemental draft because there are a lot worse situations with guys in the NFL right now that have done, horrible things that are allowed to play, right? So I think that is something, worth noting here is that, yeah, as much as this is baggage here, there are guys in the NFL that carry a lot of baggage and have done, real bad things in the past, yet they're still allowed to play. So I understand that. And at the same time, we're talking about the NFL where, it's like this in all sports now and on all these, these streaming sites and whatnot. It's gambling ads and all that stuff shoved in your face constantly. So it may seem a little bit hypocritical, but at the same time, I really don't think there's a line drawn in the sand of like what does the NFL stand for, what they don't stand for. But as far as like gambling, yeah, we know like across all the major sports, like that's a big no-no. And when you mention the fact of like how late Sorsby got into wanting to do the supplemental draft process, yeah, it's just not enough time. And honestly, like the NFL can do whatever they want, right? They like play like whatever the situation is, they can kind of determine who can play and what breaks the rules and what doesn't for them, like where that line in the sand is drawn. And obviously with gambling, there's pretty much no tolerance for it. So I get that standpoint of it, but I also understand the side of it where like, yeah, there's guys that have been arrested a million times, have been suspended for, drugs and weed and all these things before, yet they're still given a million chances. So I get both sides of it to some degree.
Well, and to Schefter's point, the NFL, they do promote gambling by having partnerships with things like DraftKings and FanDuel and all that kind of stuff, but they do still have a very clear letter of the law for how their athletes are supposed to partake in gambling, what they can and can't do, and what Sorsby did in college football would break those rules in the NFL. And you're also right to the point of, yeah, there's been plenty of guys in the NFL that have done bad things, been given second opportunities and stuff like that. And I think it's important to note they're not denying Sorsby the eligibility to play in the NFL. They're just saying we're not going to give you the supplemental draft to allow you to be a part of it in 2026. You're going to have to sit out this upcoming fall and then go through the draft process like everybody else. Like, you're still going to get an opportunity to play in the league. It's just going to have to wait a little bit. It's not going to happen immediately. So I think that's fair. Now, his legal team, Jeffrey Kessler, they're going to fight it. I think they're going to pretty quickly figure out that the NFL has more competent lawyers than the NCAA has, and quite frankly, I don't see this winning in court.
At the end of the day, look, at this point now, it's kind of in the team's hands heading into 2027 whether they want to pick this guy or not, because he carries a lot of there's a lot of baggage to this now. If I'm an NFL team and I have a late draft pick and there's other next year's supposed to be a pretty good quarterback class, right? So if you have like a 5th round pick and you're trying to find a quarterback, do I take Sorsby, who's got a lot of talent, but he's got all this stuff going on in the background, or do I take a guy that maybe isn't as talented but doesn't have all these problems? Probably taking the guy that isn't Sorsby, right? I think at this point it's kind of up to the NFL teams now of like, do you want this baggage in your locker room? A guy that's going to, bring a media storm with him. For Sorsby to go from being one of the highest paid players coming out of the transfer portal to go to Texas Tech, how big of a deal that was, to a point where he's kind of just getting blackmailed to some degree, where he's just not getting an opportunity right now, or we'll see what happens next year. There's always a chance he can get an opportunity with the draft next year, but it's no guarantee any team's going to want to pick him. It's crazy how far he's fallen because of his wrongdoings here in college.
The best thing for him, because again, I think he's not going to be doing anything this upcoming fall, and his next best opportunity is next year's NFL draft, is to be as clean can be, right? And I know Texas Tech had said that they had things on his phone and stuff like that are going to track his his phone usage and stuff like that to ensure he wasn't on these gambling apps. I don't know if those things are still in place or not, but if I'm Brendan Sorsby, I'm not going to put a single toe out of line between now and late April, early May, whenever next year's draft is, to guarantee that I can prove to my best ability that I've been rehabilitated and this isn't going to be a problem anymore. Because, again, they're going to ask questions. This is going to be something when he's going through the pre-draft process, they're going to hammer him on if he's cured on this or not. So it's in your best interest for almost the next entire year to not even remotely put a toe out of place if you're Brendan Sorsby.
No, I mean, between now and next April should not be in any sort of hot water or anything. There should be no more news of wrongdoings or gambling stuff that's coming out about Brendan Sorsby. If he wants a chance in the league, he's going to have to keep his nose clean. And, I mean, the best way to do that is just to not be in the news for all these wrong reasons that we're talking about.
Because if you're him, if you place a single bet, if you decide to bet on the World Series
it's back,
in October.
It's back to square one.
Yeah,
it's back to square one. That guy should not have a gambling app on his phone.
Right.
He should not be going to any casinos near him. I mean, this guy should have nothing to do with gambling. But as we know with addictions, you can go get treatment, rehab, and all that, but it's very hard to put away that addiction for good. So that will be the challenge here over the next year or so.
We'll see if he can do it, but as of right now, Brendan Sorsby not going to be doing anything football-related this upcoming fall. Last night was the NBA draft. What stood out, and what are we interested to see going forward with the new superstars of the league? We'll discuss that coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri on your Wednesday on the Game.
With the first pick in the 2026 NBA Draft, the Washington Wizards select Anise Dabansa Jr. from Brigham Young University.
The debate, the conversation, it's over. In a class that's been touted as one of the deepest in recent memory, it is Anise A.J. Dabansa, the freshman out of BYU that the Washington Wizards select #1 overall.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Felcher along with you on Wednesday here on the game. That was called last night. NBA draft, A.J. Dabansa ends up going #1 overall to the Washington Wizards. No surprise there. That's kind of what had been mocked for a while. And really, Jack, last night's draft was pretty straightforward. No shocking drops, no wild picks or anything like that. Darren Peterson ends up going #2. Cam Boozer ends up going #3. Like, it was pretty straightforward and kind of in line with what most of the mocks had going in.
Honestly, did not realize that was Dabansa's first name when Adam Silver read it off. But yeah, no, I mean, look, I think the draft played out as expected. Dabansa's obviously, you can make the debate about Darren Peterson, but at the end of the day, I think Dabansa's a better player. But Peterson had all the kind of problems with Kansas with the load management stuff, taking himself out of games. I mean, that was a bit of a head case, but I think he fits a very good situation out there in Utah where they have a lot of young players, a lot of young talent. Like, Utah is set up pretty well for the future, I think. But as far as the Wizards go, getting Dabansa, like, they get the guy that I think, if everyone stays healthy, if everyone, like, I'm talking about Anthony Davis primarily here, you got Trae Young back, who he just signed that contract with the Wizards with, to be there for the next 4 years. You got him. You got Dabansa. You got Anthony Davis. Like, that's a really good big three right there. The Wizards can make some noise in the East potentially as soon as next year.
Yeah, and again, A.J. Dabansa looking at as one of those guys that could go on to be a perennial all-star and a real game changer for years and years to come. You go to Darren Peterson at #2, going to the Utah Jazz, and he was the one that was the most debatable going into the draft because of the way he handled himself at Kansas this past season, taking himself out of games, not seemingly giving 110%. And that's what I think I'm most interested to see out of everybody that got drafted last night is, okay, was Darren Peterson truly just trying to save himself for the NBA, or is that who Darren Peterson is, and we're going to see these same kind of issues crop up when he's with the Jazz now?
I mean, potentially. I mean, look, I think in terms of ceiling, him and Dabansa obviously are the highest ceiling guys. Like, you could argue Peterson could be the better player overall. I don't. It's easy to say that those problems aren't going to be an issue, but with how the load management thing does go with the NBA and how guys do rest a little bit here and there, I do wonder what that is going to look like. But I think part of it was just preserving himself for the draft, so there's no issues going to that. And now it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's going out there and playing. I don't know what the standard is for like what guys play these days, but yeah, if he's playing majority of the games and only missing a few here and there, I think that wouldn't be surprising at all now moving forward. Now that he's got his future set.
Later on in the first round with the 9th pick, Dusty May, who again just became the coach of the Dallas Mavericks. I guess no surprise, he ends up taking Morez Johnson Jr. from his Michigan National Championship team at the 9th pick.
Yeah, I mean, look, we kind of figured that he would take a Michigan guy. It is kind of funny that Yaxel Landenberg I think he was interviewed before the draft, and he was giving his pitch, wanting to play for the Mavs with Dusty May being his coach there at Michigan, and he ends up going to the Warriors, which I think is a pretty good pick for that team out there in Golden State. But yeah, Morris Johnson, and then Michigan, another guy, A.D. Mara, going with the 12th pick to OKC. I mean, talk about one of the better picks in the draft overall. Talk about a way to add another huge big man with a really big wingspan coming to that team to pair with Chet Holmgren to try. I mean, like, that was the problem for OKC, was they did not stop Victor Wembanyama consistently. This is a guy from a defensive standpoint especially that can help you out a lot in that way. So OKC gets a really good pick there. And, of course, it comes from that trade with the Clippers.
Again, no real surprises last night when it came to the draft, but I was watching a lot of the NBA Live lead up to it and stuff like that, and I saw a lot of conversation being made about could this be the best draft class ever? Could it beat out 1996 and be the class that we look at and remember as the greatest of all time? That's such a tough conversation to have for any of these guys playing in the NBA, right? Like, I feel like that's lofty expectations to put on this group of young men. And look, I don't doubt that several of them could go on to be really, really great players, but like the greatest class of all time, that's a bit of a reach to make before the draft even happens.
No, that's I think on paper right now as it stands, this class should be very good when we look back 10, 15 years from now. Like we should be potentially comparing this to like 03 or 96, like you said, like one of those classes that's like, yeah, that was a loaded group. I'd be very surprised if we're not talking about this group as the case. Like, I think the top 10 picks right here, like, I think that, like, especially with the guard position, like 6 through 7 or 6 through 8 with Michael Brown, Darius Akoff, and Kingston Fleming. So I think Fleming's is a really good pick going to the Hawks. Like, this is a loaded group from top to bottom. But, yeah, time will tell. It's definitely too early, like you said, Tyler, to anoint this class as being one of the best of all time just because none of these guys have played a game yet.
The NBA draft, by the way, continues with round number or continues later on tonight on ESPN. Of course, one of the bigger news stories this week in the NBA was Giannis Antetokounmpo being traded from the Bucks to the Miami Heat. And this is a pretty interesting move that now pairs Giannis Antetokounmpo up with Bam Adebayo down there in Miami. The Bucks get a lot of young talent coming into their organization, and I think it feels like both sides feel like they came out pretty good on this one.
Yeah, for the Heat, I think this puts them in a position where they've got Giannis, they've got Bam, they've got, I think Norman Powell. We'll see what happens with him. I think he's a free agent this offseason here. You get one more year of Andrew Wiggins. But beyond that, I mean, you kind of lose a lot of your depth and a lot of, like, role players because of this trade. Like, you gave up Tyler Hero, who was, a starter for you. Your second leading point scorer this year behind Powell. That's a tough loss there. Khalil Ware, Jaime Vasquez. I mean, you're losing 4 guys that were playing big minutes for you. You're losing a lot of picks. Picks can turn into be something good. But the Heat, I mean, the thing is, I mean, they could easily be one of the best teams in the East, but I just don't know if that's going to be the case because behind Giannis and Bam, what else do they have, right? That's the thing. Like, they've got to go out here now this summer and bring in guys that are going to, help fill out the starting lineup, help fill out the bench. But for the Bucks, I mean, if they can nail some of these picks, they're going to be set up very well here for the future. This is definitely a long-term play for the Bucks. This kind of had to happen. It's been talked about for definitely over a year now with Giannis wanting out eventually to find a new home. And it eventually does happen now to where, the Heat are in win now mode while the Bucks, they're setting themselves up for the future.
The Bucks are not concerned about what happens in 2029, 2030, or anything like that. They're focused on the here and now, as you said, and they believe that bringing in Giannis, and again, we'll see how they potentially build that depth back up through free agency and all that to potentially put themselves in a situation to win right now. Again, this is something they haven't done since the Big Three was in town.
Yeah, I mean, and you get Bobby Portis as well. Can't forget Bobby Portis, so that adds to your starting lineup right there. But you have got to find a way to replace all those guys you're losing, right? That's the way this thing can work. It can be a really good trade if you go out here and add more pieces this offseason to make it a really good, complete team. Because Bam, Giannis, that's a really good 1-2 punch.
Yep.
But as we know in the NBA, it's a team sport. You need key guys to come off the bench and give you good minutes. Otherwise, I mean, you're going to be in a situation where I could easily see the Heat right now being like a 5 or 6 seed in the East and not winning a championship with these 2 guys based on the current roster. You've got to add more pieces around them.
We'll see what happens, but again, blockbuster trade the other day with Giannis heading down to South Beach to play for the Heat. We'll come back, wrap up the hour, talk some racing with Jen Jensen as we do each and every Wednesday here on the Extra Point on the Game.
superstar, and he's showing us why.
The Star is born here today. It's America 250. It's a red, white, and blue paint scheme. And a young superstar is going to get it done. In his 13th career start, it's Corey Heim who will win at Naval Base Coronado.
Welcome back in. Extra Points. Our head along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. Jen Jensen joining me on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines, talk racing as we do each and every Wednesday. And, Jen, I knew at some point we were going to be on this show talking about Corey Heim winning a cup race. Don't know if I predicted it in his 13th start before he even went full-time, but Sunday at Naval Base Coronado, that's indeed what happened.
I mean, we have been talking about how he's going to be the thing. I mean, he's been so successful and got the championship in the truck series and just the ultimate performance for him. I mean, he was battling with Reddick and past Reddick with 3 to go. Like, incredible performance by Heim. Yeah,
and look, this race kind of took on a different character after both SVG and Connor Zilic got taken out in that huge wreck on restart and in stage number 2. But, yeah, it wasn't a walk in the park by any means because he did have to go out there and outduel his teammate and several others to put himself in that position. I thought it was actually pretty interesting that Tyler Reddick, after he ran him out of line in one of the turns there with about 2 to go, decided to give him his spot back, right? Now, again, Reddick would end up blowing a tire and not being a factor after that, but, that shows you the level of respect that he's already earning from his competitors and from his teammates before he even goes full-time next year.
Yeah, I think it's a great perspective. It really is. And I think overall that he's just proven that he's worthy of that kind of respect. And like you said, it's such an early point where he's not even full-time yet. So he's been one who's been fun to watch, and he's going to continue to be. This is a fun generation coming up. Yeah, he's going to be a superstar. And again, Denny Hamlin talks about him being generational talent, which is why he's going to be full-time with 23XI next year. This is kind of an awkward in-between year where he's not running full-time in anything, running some truck stuff, running some cup stuff, and really, I think we all kind of view this as an opportunity for him to get more experience, but hey, he put himself in position to win the race and did just that, and kind of already has a jump on going full-time next year. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching that. And, it was interesting to watch going to somebody else who, Brent Cruz getting in the car for Christopher Bell. I felt bad for him that he didn't have the opportunity to complete the race to see how well he would perform on Sunday. I got to imagine NASCAR is pretty excited, too, when you look at the young talent of Carson Hocevar, Connor Zilic. Now you got Corey Heim coming along, Brent Cruz, who we expect to be in the Cup Series in a couple years. That's a strong, young core nucleus of guys that could be leading the sport for the next 20 or so years. And again, seeing a guy like Heim get to victory lane that quickly only further reinforces that. Yeah, I don't disagree. It's a fun time for them, and it's fun to listen to, like you said, some of the veterans talk about that, the Denny Hamlins of the world, the Harvicks of the world, that really respect what they are seeing and to kind of hear their perspectives as to what the future looks like for NASCAR. And that's important because we need that. So this past weekend's race, again, was at Naval Base Coronado out there in San Diego, one of the most unique venues that NASCAR has ever raced at. There were some concerns when it came to food, when it came to lines and things like that. NASCAR tried to correct those as the weekend went along, but for the most part, it seemed like a resounding success. The visuals were absolutely gorgeous. There's a great photo of Heim doing his burnout in front of the aircraft carrier, the USS Carl Vinson, that is definitely maybe sports photo of the year. And everything about this was just so cool and so neat. No, it really, really was. And, of course, then we also did find out that maybe security wasn't 100% with the Xfinity race with the guy who decided that he was going to figure out how to get onto a hot track and a red flag. And, of course, military police took care of that pretty quickly when he got off. But that was a crazy incident in and of itself. Yeah, there's debate on if this event's going to continue or not, or if it's a one-off deal. I thought, and especially with the way they set up the track, very competitive, very racy, had a lot of action going on through it that isn't always the case, especially when you make a temporary track like that. But I'd be all for going back and doing this again next year. I would too. I mean, hey, you get some really great photos of cars, literally launched, and air underneath them. I mean, that just makes it extra fun and great visuals. And I thought it was good racing overall.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you tweak some things with the way the track's designed. Again, you had a couple of really nasty wrecks right there past the start-finish line in both the O'Reilly Auto Parts race on Saturday and the Cup race on Sunday. So maybe kind of go back to the drawing board on that. But I thought for the most part, the weekend was a resounding success.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think there were just a lot of really good positives and a lot of feel goods in it. And if they can go and it can be good racing, and hey, we had good weather, so that was certainly a plus.
Yep. This upcoming weekend, they'll stay in the state of California. Go into the northern end now as they'll go to Snowman Raceway, and we'll see if SVG can stay out of trouble and get back to his winning ways on road courses.
Yeah, no kidding. That's you expected him to just automatically be top one or two. So it was a very odd place that we were all in when he wasn't that far up. That was very unusual.
And don't look now. The points lead is only down to 8 points after Reddick had his tire problem at the end of the race on Sunday. He had a triple-digit lead only a couple weeks ago. Denny Hamlin has brought this and made it a race, which is fun.
Yeah, it is. I'm looking forward to this weekend and seeing kind of how things shake out.
We'll talk about it next week as we look ahead to the rest of the summer stretch. Appreciate it as always, Jen.
Hey, thanks so much, Tyler.
That'll do it for the Extra Point. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, 73 days from kickoff. What's the trivia question? Find out next here in the game. 11 o'clock on your Wednesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell along with you guys here on your Wednesday on the Game. Several things to get into later on this hour. We'll talk the latest when it comes to what's going on with the NCAA, as well as Brennan Sorsby. Also, CBS Sports listed players that are running out of time to prove themselves. What Gamecock did they put on that list? We'll tell you about that in a little bit. But, of course, guys, we always have to start off with a little bit of countdown trivia. Are we prepared today?
Well, depends. Tell me this. I don't think you responded to my suggestion, so.
I did take up your suggestion.
Okay.
Now, you have to help me out with how to pronounce the first name.
Rakevius.
Rakevius? Okay.
Or sure. better just known as Rock.
Rock? All right.
Rock Watkins.
Rock Watkins.
One of the, nice dude off the field, but just one of the meanest dudes, I feel like, on the field. And I would say Chris, remind me, man, came a little bit out of nowhere, in my opinion. Like, he was a JUCO addition to the team. You know, maybe, I don't know, maybe they were internally excited about him. I don't know, but I just don't remember him having a ton of fanfare coming out of JUCO. And then all of a sudden, this guy comes in and just like, I think it was maybe year 2 starts. Everybody's like, okay, this guy's not only gonna,
really good.
Yeah, not only is he maybe gonna start, he's like gonna play well.
Yeah, he I remember, and this was back when South Carolina, it seemed like every year almost they were taking a guy from Georgia military, JUCO, often offensive lineman, and whether or not the staff actually thought this, I don't remember, but from just like an outsider perspective, like fan or media perspective, he was seen as kind of a throw-in for Steven Singleton. Remember Steven Singleton, Wes? Former LSU signee. He was like a 4-star out of high school. He ended up going JUCO. And so when these two guys signed, say, oh, Steven Singleton, we're getting this big time, but Watkins ended up being the player. I think he was one of those guys that literally might have been a 2-star back in the day. I think Watkins was actually the old 5.4 2-star, if I'm not mistaken, but very little fanfare. But you're right. I mean, he ended up playing, he played multiple positions, played very well. He ended up being he was a first-team All-SEC guy, second team by the coaches. So he ended up being a really good player, got himself drafted, ended up being a heck of a get for the Gamecocks.
So what do we think the question about him is going to be?
I'm clueless.
See, here's our problem. These 70s, like when you get to a countdown, you're in the 70s, you're in the 60s. Man, no offense to the big uglies, but it's not like they have memorable games. Like you can't be like, hey, remember that time he pancaked 4 guys? Nope, nobody knows. So I think that's what makes it kind of difficult. So I mean, you could maybe go a little bit into what I did to Chris and the NFL part of this. You can maybe go to all-time starts for him. I don't know. There's a number of different equally difficult ways you could go with this thing, Tyler.
So Chris almost kind of alluded to it a moment ago, but the question is, how many offensive line spots did Roque Watkins play during his South Carolina career? Rock Watkins, sorry.
Rock sounds just way more intimidating, Tyler. Rock. How many different positions did he play on the O-line is your question.
Yep. First person to answer
I've got my answer. I don't know if it's right. I have a decent. I'm not going to say I know it because I miss it every time.
All right, go, fire away, Chris, since you're so confident.
I'm going 4.
Name them.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. Is he right?
Yes, he's right.
Left guard, left tackle, right tackle.
That is correct. Every spot but center.
Wes, are you trying to steal?
I'm trying to see if Tyler will give me a half point.
Well, Chris, should Wes get half a point for? Were you going to say the same thing?
I was going to say everything but center. So
Should he get half a point for that?
I mean, Wes, real talk. Would you have guessed 4?
Well, no, I was basing off of what you said, and
Well,
Tyler.
what would have been your guess?
I was gonna go 3 or 4, so I was gonna read the room and I was gonna let you. I played some what's that called, game theory, and letting you go first, and I was gonna view Tyler's reaction. I don't want the point on the number. I'm just saying, can I get if Chris gets a whole point, can I get a half point for naming?
I was gonna award you the half point if you would have said I 100% was gonna say 4. I'll let Tyler be the arbiter. I don't want to create a rift between me and Wes.
I mean, I'm being honest that I would not have 100% said 4.
You know what? For the sake of gamesmanship, I'll give you the half point.
Okay. All right.
So, Chris, you still
I
have
hope
the
you
lead.
remember. I hope you remember this moment, Wes.
Hey, listen.
Chris just had his turn to a villain. This is his origin story.
Chris is not going to give you any more assists from now until the beginning of the season.
That's all right.
So,
When did he play left tackle is the question.
let's see.
Because he started out playing a couple of guard spots his first year. I know that. He moved to right tackle preseason going into, I think, his final year.
Yep.
When did the left... That's where I was going 3 or 4 in my mind.
So, per Kevin Miller's write-up on Gamecock Central, because he was the 73 for his countdown series today, he moved to left tackle after Kyle Nunn got hurt.
Yep. Senior year, I think.
Yeah, that was 2011.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, in looking at his profile, it's really hard to believe that he's only 6'4". He's one of those guys that looks like he's bigger than he's listed. 6'4", 330 at that. Just a monster of a person.
Well, he was a wide dude. You know, like he just had. A matter of fact, I'm a little bit. I don't want to say surprised. If you saw him, you would be like, "That's an All SEC guard." You know what I'm saying? Like he didn't quite have the look of the big 6'6", like long arms, pretty tackle type that's going in the first round. He had the look of this is an interior lineman, wide, little mean. Just had he was the perfect for that, especially for that. Think about this though, guys. This was a long time ago. Like offensive linemen have gotten bigger and bigger over the years. So the fact that he was that big back then, you know, I don't want to say he was a complete outlier, but he was definitely what you were looking for an SEC offensive lineman.
Yeah, and I think speaks to just like it's hard to, not that there aren't other positions where there have been, 2 stars, 3 stars, guys that have ended up outperforming their ranking. But O-line is a really hard one to, I mean, we always say it's one of the hardest positions to project, so got a guy that wasn't a big-time prospect, played at the same high school as Eric Berry, who ended up going and being a star for Tennessee and then playing in the NFL at Creekside, I think that's where they went. Same high school regardless. And, again, it just came in with no fanfare, right? And so you just got to find it. This is still true to this day, finding the right kind of guys that fit. I think Wes are even seeing that a little bit in high school recruiting right now, trying to be resourceful, trying to, you may not in this cycle at least be signing the on paper caliber type of guy that we've become accustomed to. But that was one reason that fans were so disenchanted over these last several years as they were looking at the commitment list. They're looking at the signees. Bro, man, we're getting these guys that all these other schools wanted, and it's not panning out from a development standpoint. And I think there are a lot of reasons for that. Development is one, scheme is one, fit is a thing. You build in that offensive linemen are really hard to project from the high school to the college level. But also there's just so many examples of guys that have gone on to, play in the NFL or be standouts in college like Rock Watkins was, where they weren't really this big-time recruit, right? But it's just really hard to evaluate offensive linemen. So if you're looking at even what South Carolina's landed in this class, yeah, there's not as much star power there. But I think with offensive line and it being such a developmental position, you can go out in the portal now, find guys who are more experienced, more proven, and then actually bring along some guys to develop along the way, you can still do quite well on that front. And Randy Clements and Jason Smith have a pretty good track record of doing that. They weren't always going out and landing. If you look at their previous stops, it's not like they were going out and getting 4-star after 4-star after 5-star, but they have gotten results, wherever they've been.
Question for you guys. Do y'all know what Rock is doing these days?
I was just about to ask you the same thing.
Oh, I don't know that. I'm interested.
He's coaching ball. And I was,
there you go.
I was going to give Chris an opportunity for a half point as well, but I don't think he'll get it since where is he coaching at, Chris?
No clue.
Okay. Do you know what state it is?
No clue. Georgia.
Yes, it is. You don't get points for that, but it is. He is the Lithia Springs football offensive coordinator, according to his Instagram. And he was actually, this is kind of cool, Georgia High School Offensive Line Coach of the Year, 23 and 24. So, pretty cool.
Good.
There we go.
Good to see him have success.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Also has O-line. He does like O-line training sessions as well off of, away from what he does with his high school team.
Well, there's your life update on Rock Watkins.
There you go.
I've got no points for this one. Can either of y'all? Well, Tyler, you've clearly read the piece. You'll probably get it. Wes, do you know what team drafted Rock Watkins? Name the 2 NFL teams that Rock Watkins played for. How about that?
Were the Chiefs in there?
Chiefs were the second team. That's right. I had forgotten the first one. I remembered the Chiefs. I always associate him with the Chiefs.
Is it the Rams?
The Rams. That is correct. Ding. No points.
The St. Louis Rams, more specifically.
Georgia, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Pick 150. Same year that Travian Robertson was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. They were in the same draft class as well.
Yeah, that was not a good draft class for the Falcons, unfortunately.
They've had a lot of those, Tyler.
Yeah, unfortunately. Are there any suggestions for 72?
Off top? No. Chris?
Yes, Surratt.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we're kind of stuck in the offensive lineman bubble until we get into like the 50s probably. So have to
Donnell Stanley.
Ooh.
Would that be a good one?
That'd be a pretty good one. I'm trying to think. Is there a 72? We're not thinking about.
I'm sure of that.
Trey Jones.
Oh. I got a Trey Jones trivia question percolating. We'll see if Tyler can get it, and then we can sync up.
All right, got some options.
The Google AI, it's just so dramatic though. It says Trey Jones was famously deployed in heavy packages as a massive 310-pound fullback. That is somewhat true, but famously deployed.
I don't know if it was famously. Yeah, sometimes the AI is bad too. Wes Mitchell wore number 72. It's like, what? I mean, wasn't even on the team.
Well, Jordan Carty is also mentioned as a standout Gamecock wearing 72.
Oh, that was absolute blast from the past.
This is why we don't completely trust AI yet.
Yep.
So
AI also gave us, I sent Wes this morning a screenshot, Donovan Murphy from the Gamecocks.
Close enough.
How do you get that wrong?
Close enough.
Yeah, it's a name. What are we doing here?
73 days until kickoff. CBS Sports outlined one South Carolina football player that's running out of time to prove himself. Who is that? We'll talk about it coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
All right, guys, you know what we tell you every single day. Hit up our friends at Integrated Media. The countdown to football is on, which means you have time, but you're running out of time to upgrade that man cave, that home viewing game experience. 803-948-8327 is the number. IntegratedMediaInc.com is the website. You may be saying, what do I need to hit them up for? Well, obviously, man, you're going to have your friends over, you have your family over, you're going to watch some football this upcoming fall. You want to make sure that you have a crystal clear picture. You want to make sure you got that surround sound going, and you want to make sure it all looks professional. It's all packaged together for you. They can hang the TV, they can hide the wires, they can implement the surround sound, and if you really want to, they can take that extra room in your home and turn it into that man cave or that home theater entire system. IntegratedMediaInc.com, again, is the website. 803-948-8327. Hit them up, upgrade that football viewing experience, because soon you'll be out of time.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris with you on your Wednesday here on The Game. Approaching the start of the 2026 season, where we're interested to see so many guys and how they perform this upcoming year, but one in particular made a list from CBS yesterday. This list by, let's see. Sorry, I got to get the author's name here.
It is list season.
It is list season.
Boys.
Cooper Patagna of CBS Sports put out his bust alert. 8 college football players running out of time to prove themselves entering the 2026 season. This is a list of former 5 stars that still have questions heading in to the 2026 season. Among them are names like DJ Lagway, Nico Imaliava, Ryan Coleman-Williams from Alabama, and Nick Carber for South Carolina in terms of will they or won't they but a break or bust for this upcoming season. And he lists for Harbor, things that maybe work against him in terms of just his lack of total experience at wide receiver, being only in his college career, lack of natural pass catching ability, limited route tree, that kind of stuff. But his positives obviously go back to his athleticism, knowing that he is somebody that is always going to usually be the best athlete on the field. And we saw him play really well when it came to the deep balls last year, which is one thing that Mike Shula did seem to kind of do pretty well last season. So the debate is, okay, is this going to be a breakout year, or is it a year where he just kind of stays true, or he is more in line with what he did a season ago, and it's good, but it's not great?
Yeah, and I don't know, man. I understand these lists. I understand you're kind of, in some ways, you're taking the parameters of the list and you're trying to find some guys that somewhat fit those parameters. So to me, like whenever you start talking about using the word bust, Nick Carber's not a bust, regardless. To me, like I feel like you've seen the development so far. Like you've seen him really go from being truly a track guy trying to play football to a football player. And in a lot of ways, from a football player to a wide receiver, where you're seeing some of those skills just be developed and start to translate some of that athleticism to wide receiver skills. So, I look at a 5-star bust as kind of being a guy who just, like, never makes an impact at all. However, I do, I guess, especially from a big picture national standpoint, see why maybe you would include him in this. It is not, Chris, is not as bad as what is my, like, pet peeve that our guy Will Helms actually mentioned on our message board a couple weeks ago, and that is the list for breakout stars this year. And then you look, and the guy had, like, 10 sacks last year, and it's like, okay, you can't be a breakout star if you already had a pretty darn good season last year.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, Cooper also looped in predictions for all these guys that he listed, and he does not think Nick Carber will bust. He put him in the won't bust. And again, what is the definition of that? Like, there are a lot of guys. You can think of some 5 stars from, we've been covering recruiting for, almost 20 years, Wes, at this point. You can think of guys that were 4 stars, 5 stars, had huge expectations, and then didn't do anything. They got kicked off the team. They didn't have a sizable impact. They weren't a starter. You can think of guys like that. I think, again, when you go back to Nick Carber, I go back to the recruiting process and the outsized expectations for him. People looked at him and said, okay, 6'5", 230, world-class speed. He's listed as a receiver some places. All right, that means he's going to come in and, win the Heisman as a freshman. And that was never the case. His projection was more of it was like a longer-term projection, where if you looked at Nick Carber, you go, if this guy develops, he has the physical tools to be a first-round pick. Even not all 5 stars are created equal. All first-round picks in the NFL draft aren't created equal. That's why there's kind of a hierarchy. A lot of times towards the back half of the draft, it's guys that maybe are a little bit more of a projection. Sometimes at the front half of the draft, it's guys that NFL teams just fall in love with the tools, and you're sitting there going, all right, this guy maybe wasn't an absolute stud. Patrick Mahomes is a good example, obviously had all the tools, wasn't absolutely incredible at Texas Tech. Josh Allen, all the tools, has ended up being a really, really good player in the NFL. He was super polarizing at the NFL level because when you looked at his statistics at the college level, you go, oh, man, there's kind of some concerns here, right? But he, from a talent standpoint, he had so much of it that teams said we can unlock this guy. And I think whatever Nick ends up doing this year, there's going to be NFL teams that say we can unlock even more of that, because of those physical tools. You see that every single year. So I don't think even look, there has been a clear progression from Nick from the time he got here until now. Like, one of the things that was mentioned in this piece was the lack of natural pass catching skills. 100% that was a thing when he got here. Kind of fought the ball a little bit, didn't look super natural, super comfortable. He looks a lot more comfortable now. That doesn't mean he has maybe the most natural hands in the world, but he has really, really worked hard by all accounts, putting in extra work, not just during the structure of an actual countable practice. Like, he's gone out there and done a lot of stuff on his own. And it seems like every year in every game, Nick Harbor makes a play where you go, all right, that looks a little bit more like a natural receiver. The play against Texas A&M last year was, I think, one that illustrated, like, this is what people envisioned, a little bit more. But is he more of a deep ball or long speed guy? Yeah, he's always going to be that. He's not a slot receiver. But I think you've seen that growth in just understanding how to run routes, tracking the ball better, catching the football more naturally. We've seen that. So I think he's going to have a good year. I don't know. For some people, he's never going to live up to what they have in their minds. But that doesn't make him a bust, no matter what happens, I don't think.
Well, as we talk about so much, I'm looking at all these other guys on the list, and I don't think any of them came into college as 5-star athletes, right? Like, they came in 5 stars in their own respective positions and are made to live up to the billing of what being a 5-star at that position is. With Harvard, it's different. Like, yeah, freak athlete, 5-star. Of course, he came in with that kind of billing just kind of overall. But if he was just kind of put in the box of a wide receiver coming into college, would have been viewed a little bit differently and probably isn't ending up on these kind of lists. So you almost kind of have to make an exception for him because, yes, he is a 5-star, but not at the position that he's technically playing. So you can have a very successful college career for Nick Harbor without living up to a quote-unquote 5-star billing that a wide receiver would have.
Yeah, and I think that was a little bit of the almost unfair situation there for Nick coming into the season, his first year. And you then you throw in, what was that, going into his sophomore year, the video game comes out.
Yep.
And, he's just, an absolute just unstoppable force on the game when it first comes out. And now all of a sudden that name is sort of in the conversation with people who maybe aren't even following South Carolina or don't follow college football incredibly closely. You end up having people that want to play the video game with South Carolina just to use Nick Harbor on there. And now all of a sudden, well, hey, let me watch this guy in real life. Well, wait, this is not the same. So I will always credit Nick, though, for the amount of work he's put in, the job that Mike Furry has done, working just countless hours with him sort of in personal development as well. Like, this is if he has the year he is capable of, man, I think that's an awesome story. Like, I think that's an awesome story for Nick, for Furry, and for South Carolina. And I'll say this, guys, I do think some of this is tied to what can you get out of a Nitro Tuggle? Like, the best case scenario is that a Nitro Tuggle, or even a DJ Black or a Donovan Murph emerging as what I would call your true, like, X receiver who has a little bit more diversified route tree that allows Nick Harbor to kind of be that Z who doesn't maybe have to run quite as many different routes.
Yeah, we'll obviously see. Again, final year for Nick Harbor coming up. 73 days when Carolina kicks off against Kent State. New rules for eligibility coming down from the NCAA. We'll talk about that coming up next. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. It's with Chris with you here on your Wednesday on the game. As it's been speculated for a while, the NCAA Division I cabinet officially approved a new model for eligibility going forward, the 5-in-5 plan, which would be 5 years of eligibility over the course of 5 years for student athletes starting either when they A, graduate high school, or B, when they turn 19. There are exemptions to this, like religious services, like students at BYU that go on their Mormon missions, military service, and things like pregnancy for female student athletes as well. But for the most part, we've really just kind of restructured what eligibility means in college sports going forward.
Yeah, and like you said, man, this felt like it was coming down the pipe, and now one more step towards becoming official. And, here's the thing. So yes, there are still some qualifications there where you could get an extra year, but for the most part, they have chopped out a lot of the wiggle room, a lot of the gray area, a lot of the, well, man, I need this extra year for this reason. I think other than those things you mentioned there, like, for the most part, you have 5 years, and then that's that. And it also sort of, in a roundabout way, cuts out some of the, hey, you can go get this professional player and just kind of stick them in here to college ball because they only played overseas somewhere. So it kind of, not so directly, like it seems like this was a big reason they did this, even if it's not mentioned at all in the information that they're putting out. So, I think it's just the next step. I mean, some people remember, like, back in the day, freshmen couldn't even play. You know what I'm saying? So I think this just simplifies and takes away a lot of the paperwork of, like, hey, this guy got hurt. He needs to fill out this paperwork to get his medical red shirt, and just all this different stuff. It's a simplification of everything.
No more ninth-year players? Is that what we're saying?
It seems to be what we're saying.
We think not. We think not.
No more more red shirt tracker on Gamecock Central either, Chris.
Yeah, that's right. No, there's already some suits. There will be more. But I think the international player deal is a big reason for this, guys. I mean, people have wanted to streamline a lot of this, but I think for the NCAA, I think they're looking at this thing going, all right, we've had this influx. I mean, basketball is really the one you look at, right? This is where it's happening, where you're getting guys from pro league. South Carolina's done it, of course. And in the future, you like, think about a guy like Juan Fernandez, who is 23 years old. I think that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of the either first year going forward, starting in the 2027 recruiting class, because current guys, it's basically whichever model is best for the student athlete, kind of grandfathered in a way. But going forward, if you get a guy who, it's either upon enrollment or if they've turned 19, whichever's earlier, then your clock starts, right? So if you turn 19, you count the academic year, the clock starts. Really what that means in effect is if you've recruited a professional athlete, as we've seen in college basketball, that guy might be a 1-year player at this point, or a 2-year player based on when their clock started. So I think the practical effect of this, there are things like, red shirts and what waivers aren't going to be considered anymore. But also I think another side, piece of this is the fact that it's probably going to somewhat curtail, what we're seeing going on in college basketball right now.
So you mentioned there's already some litigation being brought up in terms of current-ish student athletes that aren't being grandfathered in, the ones that would have had eligibility run out from the 25-26 season. They're going to be in. Darren Heitner, obviously an attorney we're very familiar with here, is the one seemingly leading the charge on this of trying to get them a extra year of eligibility based on this new rule. That's kind of one of those things. And look, the NCAA loses in court all the time, so I don't think it would shock anyone if they end up losing this one too. But it's kind of like, okay, you did run out of eligibility before this rule went into place, so I don't know if you have as good of an argument on that or not.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if this matters, but I think part of the argument that those folks will take is, it's actually kind of like Lexi Winters, who came in from softball, who was with us a couple weeks ago. She was like, if you're in my class, which she's the class a lot of these players are, you missed out on the extra COVID year on the front end, and then you missed out on the extra fifth year on the back end, and there's really only like a class or two in there just by the numbers that would be the case for. So for the last however many cycles, for the most part, you got 5 years essentially. So I think that will maybe be part of the case, that the precedent ever since, and it would obviously, COVID was like 6 years ago, but it would track back to anybody who, that would track all the way back to like 2016, right? 2017. Yep. Anybody who even hit the COVID at the end of their career. So you're talking about a 10-year precedent. It's set for 1 or 2 years where you got 5 years, and now moving forward, you're getting 5 years. So they may have a case. It just depends on what the particular judge says, I think. But the good thing about it is too, this is not something that will be ongoing, I don't think. Like once you get through kind of those guys, then it'll be set. Like, hey, this is the rule. It's 5 moving forward. And there's the interesting thing too, there's a lot of guys on the current roster right now. If you are a very good college football player, or if you're in an Olympic sport and you're very successful, and there's not an NFL, an MLB, or an NBA in your future, either because you don't fit like kind of the size or the speed or whatever that those leagues covet, or like you're doing track or something. Mm-hmm. This is great for you, because you could, in theory, get another year of NIL money because you don't have that huge payday ahead for you, either because, like I said, you're not valued by that league, or in some sports that league does not exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. First lawsuits filed includes 15 athletes, but Heitner and another attorney who are working on this on behalf of athletes, they've told Front Office Sports they've got apparently a roster of about 50 players from that class that they are prepared to go to the court with. So it will be very interesting to see, what success is had in the courts and how that may potentially, because again, does this end up being a rule that is just constantly challenged and ends up becoming a no-go, or is there actually does this rule actually have teeth? I think everybody around college athletics is kind of preparing right now. All right, this is the reality. This is how we have to prepare in recruiting. But I think everybody's also watching to see what happens in the courts with this injunction request. Just another sign of the times with where we are. Try to fix a problem, put in a rule, probably an imperfect rule, and then it gets challenged. That's just where we are now.
Yeah, well, I think guys too, like, yeah, it's being challenged, but part of the challenge right now is just not necessarily the rule itself. It's more, hey, we want that rule to apply to these people.
Apply to us.
Yeah,
for sure. Speaking of problems, Brennan Sorsby's had a lot of them, and the latest comes in his attempt to make it in the NFL. We'll discuss that coming up next to wrap up the show. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour here on the Game. All right, welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris wrapping up the hour here on your Wednesday on the game. There's been no headline more consistent in the past couple weeks than Brendan Sorsby, as, of course, he was originally suing the NCAA, granted a preliminary injunction, then backed out last week and decided he was going to pursue the NFL supplemental draft. Well, guys, we learned yesterday the NFL not going to adhere to that. They are not going to have a supplemental draft this year, and they tell him, hey, better luck in the 2027 NFL draft. So for the time being, it looks like Brendan Sorsby will not be playing any sort of football this upcoming fall, as the supplemental draft was his last chance. And again, the NFL denying that yesterday.
Yeah, the NFL with some very pointed comments and I guess reactions to him trying to essentially just keep avoiding repercussions for everything, I feel like. And guys, talk about going from reportedly a $5 million contract to the situation he has put himself in right now. And, you know, even if you wait and just enter the draft in 2027, you're talking about another year off. You're talking about your the entire story around your name when teams look at you being what the biggest offseason story in college football for this past offseason. And so even if they think you're a pretty good player, think of the bust rate of quarterbacks anyway. Now, multiply on top of that everything surrounding your name and the fact that you're not going to play major college football this past season, and the fact that as talented as he is, there are some flaws to his game. This is not a kid who's considered a complete prospect, or he'd be in the NFL draft this past year and would have avoided all this potentially. But I don't know, man. It's just a pretty big, I don't want to say fall from grace, but that's probably the best way to say it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what came to mind immediately for me, man. You have gone from a guy who was getting NFL buzz once you played out your college career, a reportedly very significant NIL deal, to now kind of having to back off playing another year in college and find a way into the NFL through the supplemental draft and being denied that, right? So this is the decisions that were made, and, you know, you have to live with those consequences. They were obviously very costly for Brendan Sorsby. And so, I mean, look, Shane Beamer's talked about this locally in Columbia, even before all of these, you know, follow-up pieces happened to this story. Once the gambling scandal broke, you know, he was asked specifically, hey, what are you doing for your team to educate them on this? And said it was something that's been reiterated to players and coaches alike. So this is a tough situation. It's one that, you know, he created, and you got to live with the consequences. But the thing I find, of course, you know, the cottage industry of sports lawyering that we were just discussing in the last section is absolutely in play here. Jeffrey Kessler has indicated that the decision for the NFL to exclude him from the supplemental draft violates the collective bargaining agreement for the NFL and the law. Now, I haven't been able to find clarity of, like, what is the legal, I'm sure attorneys can come up with legal arguments. This is no slam against attorneys, but if I can make a joke, you know, they need a lot of billable hours to figure out how it violates the law. I don't know what that argument is, but the NFL, you know, pretty much has sole discretion of, hey, we are or aren't going to hold a supplemental draft, and you can or can't be a part of it, right? And one of the things the NFL mentioned in its response to Sorsby is, like, you really didn't give any supporting documentation of why you should be included. Or, you know, I think, guys, the NFL is just looking at this right now as, we don't want this headache. We don't have to take on this headache, and so we're not going to take it on.
Well, and I think there's also a little bit of question as well in terms of what Kessler's pointing out, and the way they're going to seemingly seek litigation is how he would be covered under the CBA and the Players Association without being in the NFL as well. I don't think we have full clarity on how that would work either.
Yeah, he said they want to work with the NFLPA, but Brendan Sorsby's not part of the NFLPA. So I'm with you. I don't know what the actual arguments are legally or even the CBA argument. Not sure.
Yeah, I got a little pushback on our message board when I said that, the NFL is going to get sued, and people were like, well, why should the NFL be scared of that? They're the NFL. They're big. And I didn't say they should be scared, but at no point has Sorsby's people been remotely shy about saying, we're going to take this to the courts. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, good luck suing the NFL, but and I don't know if that does you any favors to ultimately, like, does the league just say, all right, that's cool, but we're going to just tell all these teams not to pick you?
Yeah, it might be in his best interest to just mind his P's and Q's, train this fall, and get ready for the draft next year. That might be his best course of action. So we'll see what happens. But that's the latest on Brendan Sorsby, and that'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the Game.